Rolling.
Rolling.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to GameWalks, March 21st, Thursday, 2013.
We have new equipment.
Yeah,
we've upgraded.
you might be noticing a little bit more of us.
Yes.
We're using a wide-angle lens here, so very exciting.
Every week we'll introduce a new component onto the iPhone.
We started by introducing the shotgun microphone, then we attached the windscreen to the microphone.
Then we started using the light.
Yeah, that went the light, and now we're using a wide-angle lens. So sooner or later, it's just going to be a full-fledged video camera
on the end of a stick.
On the end of a stick.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
What's going on in your gaming life?
I have been playing a lot of Tomb Raider.
Yep, Tomb Raider.
I mean, it's March. There's like so many games that we're supposed to be playing right now. It's crazy. Yep. I'm honestly a little embarrassed to say that I'm only about 2/3 of the way through Tomb Raider.
That is embarrassing to say.
I had my priorities.
Because I finished it like a week and a half ago. Where have you been?
I've spent a little more time in SimCity than you. I think we're probably equal on StarCraft, and
I'm sure you've played a little more StarCraft online than I have.
But anyways, let's talk about Tomb Raider though, because you finished it.
I did, yes.
First of all, let's just start with the inevitable comparison. What's the differences between Tomb Raider and Uncharted?
Well, let's see. I think Tomb Raider has a little bit more of that exploration aspect. There's a little more items you can try and hunt for. You have the tomb kind of side quests that you do. You can do hunting. And I think that a lot of the areas are a bit more open. A lot of the combat zones are a bit more open than what you found in Uncharted.
So like a little bit more of an open world Uncharted?
Yeah, almost, a little bit. It's almost like a multiplayer map, like in a combat zone. So there's
You're certainly a lot more on rails than a game like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, but there's a lot of incentive to explore. Uncharted had the treasures, which is one little element.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, they tried to do a little more with the treasures in this one. You have a lot of the kind of story notes that you can find throughout the world that kind of call in backstory to your crewmates and the other characters on the island. There are the relics, which you can kind of like find and then examine a little more and maybe find some extra hidden clues.
Yeah, that was
which is kind of cool. Kind of feels a little more archaeologist type stuff.
And then, of course, there's the tombs. It's Tomb Raider, and there's tombs that you can find as you're playing around, which are totally bonus.
What's interesting about the tombs is I thought there was going to be some like really badass reward in the actual like tomb treasure chest, and it's really just a map, a treasure map.
It reveals
to
where all
lead
the
to all
other
the little
treasures
collectibles, and I'm like, oh man, I want that to be like a special upgrade for my weapon, or something. But that's okay. I can forgive them for that.
I agree with you. The metagame stuff is really cool in terms of just all the extra stuff you can do in the world. It feels like a cool world to explore.
Yeah.
But my question is, do you need all that stuff? Because Uncharted didn't have it, and I loved Uncharted. I thought it told a cool story. It had fun clamoring and gunplay and just
I don't think it needs it, I think it's a fine add-on. I didn't mind it, and I did actually
So it
go
is
back.
additive to the experience for you? It was worth having it?
I think it put me a little more into the character of Lara Croft. And
that's true, because she's an archaeologist.
Yeah, and they tried to play that up quite a bit, especially in the early parts of the game. So, I mean, I did feel more of like an Indiana Jones kind of trying to discover what this island was all about, more than Uncharted, where it's more kind of you're treasure hunting in Uncharted,
going
after
like pillaging
a relic, but you're not really interested in the trinkets,
the culture, and the exploration.
So
that's a really good point. When I started playing through it, I thought that this stuff was a little, tacked on. That's the wrong word. It's really well integrated. I thought that it was unnecessary. I was like, do I really need to find these geocaches and these relics and all this other stuff? But when you explain it that way, it's cool. I'm not the kind of guy who gets 100% in games, though, unless it's a game that I really, truly love, in which case I'm grateful for that, because it prolongs the experience.
I finished Tomb Raider probably about 70%. I actually went back to all the different zones, and I found the relics and the notes, because those were a little more meaningful. I didn't find all the geocaches, so I ended with like 90% or something. I felt pretty good about that. I think my biggest comment about Tomb Raider was the difficulty, in that it was really, really easy for me. I mean, I played on hard. I was playing on PC, but with an Xbox controller. And it was just a piece of cake. I mean, I rarely died in the combat sequences. I didn't have really any trouble with the platforming. And, I mean, I just had so much of the salvage and so much of the extra upgrade components. Like, I was just so much more powerful. I almost had to like find handicaps for myself.
Interesting.
Like, not spend my salvage to upgrade my weapons, because I just felt so powerful. I could just like one-shot, headshot everyone with either the bow or even like a basic like weapon. I just found it really easy, and that almost, I kind of like a little bit of challenge in my games.
Yeah.
And like Uncharted, when you play on hard, like it feels pretty tough. You gotta kind of be pretty careful and know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was just a little too easy for me. So I don't know if that was intentional, because they wanted it to be more kind of adventure, more about you.
Well, if you're the kind of person who's collecting all the scrap and all the weapon upgrades, then I can imagine it would be an easier experience for you than it was for someone who's just passive.
The big thing was the ammo.
Yeah.
So like, I would go into a combat arena, let's say I'm using my bow, and there's like 4 guys, I shoot them all in the head, and maybe I use 4 or 5 arrows. When you go loot each body, you get like 3 arrows, plus ammunition for all your other weapons.
Yeah.
So you're just like always bouncing off the ceiling of your ammo caps. And then in addition, I'm getting the upgrades where I loot more ammo, and I increase the ammo capacity of my character. So I just never felt like I was pinched on ammunition the way that you would be in like a Gears of War or even Uncharted with some of the special weapons. And I think that also took some of that challenge away, because I never had to manage really my weapon consumption.
Uncharted did a better job with that. I'll agree that Uncharted had more combat difficulty while still having fun exploration and storytelling.
Yeah.
But I wasn't too offended by that. I mean, when I want to play a cover-based shooter, I'd rather play Gears of War than Uncharted or Tomb Raider.
Yeah, so I guess my comment would be like, if I were playing on normal, then I would be like, okay, well, that's fine.
But you want
but I was playing on hard intentionally, because I wanted to like really feel that benefit of like doing all the completionist stuff, and I don't feel like I really needed it. And so, just a slight comment on it.
I also thought that they abused the QuickTime events a little bit. The press Y to save yourself or shoot this guy or dodge this boulder.
Yeah.
Those are, in a game that was tuned very easy, those QuickTime events are tuned very difficult. I was dying a lot to the QuickTime
I died
events.
a couple times on those.
I just don't like them very much. I know
Yeah.
it's like modern console generation. Everybody loves QuickTime events. But
Yeah, I mean, I heard on PC it's actually like, if you're using the keyboard on PC, it's actually really hard, because they like jump you all over the keyboard. Like, every time when you're using the controller that like to grab onto something when falling, it's X. So you just kind of like naturally get used to that. On PC, I think they changed the buttons around, so it's like a little bit tougher. And I know there were a lot of complaints about that on the forums. So
one thing that
playing on PC for that.
One thing that I think that they did a really good job of, though, is the cinematic camera and the storytelling.
Oh yeah.
I thought that the in-game cutscenes and the cinematic camera, which is basically something that Uncharted pioneered. I'll give an example from Uncharted that I thought was excellent. When you find the side of the castle for the very first time in Uncharted 1, the camera zooms way out to show you this giant castle, but you're still in control of your character as you walk up to it. And that's an example of like the game developers are playing with the camera and giving it a cinematic feel, but without interrupting the gameplay. So it's more like an interactive cinematic. They're not taking control of your character away from you.
Yeah.
That's what made Uncharted so special. And Tomb Raider, while maybe not innovating on that very much, just really nailed the feel of it. It recreated all those cinematic moments that I loved from Uncharted a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they did a great job of paying homage to great games that have come before in this console generation. And that's fine by me. Like, let's all improve off each other.
Yep.
And let's continue to improve the experience for the end user. Not everything in your game has to be innovative or the first thing that any developer has ever done.
Yep.
So I'm glad they took those cues, because they're great. And I think if you ask those developers, they would probably admit that, Uncharted inspired them on a lot of that
Walking
stuff.
past a Tomb Raider advertisement on the front right now.
There you go. So yeah, I thought that all the production values were fantastic. Like I said, I played on PC and I pumped all the graphics up, and it just looked phenomenal. I had it on my new projector, which just looked great, and that was just a lot of fun. So production values wise, like really top notch in my opinion.
The truly interesting thing about Tomb Raider, the game, and also the series to me is that the Uncharted guys will tell you they pulled a lot of inspiration for the character of Nathan Drake from Lara Croft and Tomb Raider.
It's gone full
and
circle.
A lot of storytelling and like a lot of their environments. It's all heavily referenced into Tomb Raider to create Uncharted. And now for Tomb Raider to base their gameplay and cinematic storytelling and even some of their themes and characterization around the sort of Indiana Jones or Uncharted storyline. It's like one borrowed from the other and made it so much better that the original had to borrow back from
Well, that's kind of what we're talking about, is that, we can all borrow some of these ideas from each other and then add our own kind of splash of innovation into it. And, that's just, it's actually respect, it's trying to respect your fellow developers, as long as you're not always trying to claim that you did everything first.
So they certainly took a risk with the character of Lara Croft, having her be, well, first of all, female lead, but secondly, just starting with her being a very weak character, frail, fragile character, and trying to develop her into the Lara Croft that you remember from the older Tomb Raider games. Was that risk worth taking, and did they handle it very well? Did they treat the character of Lara with respect? And did they level her up appropriately, or did they fall into too many feminism tropes?
No, I don't know. I thought it was fine.
Whiny?
She was a little bit whiny at some times, especially in the early part of the game. But as you go through the game, you start to see her build up her confidence. Like there's a moment where you find the grenade launcher, and then she's kind of taunting all the other enemies, which is great. And there's some good moments in the end, which I won't spoil, which I think is great payoff. And the thing that's always weird about these situations when you have these origin stories, though, is, there's a very emotional moment when she makes her first kill, and it's like a big deal to her. And you can sense that that's, a frail moment. And then, 10 seconds later, you're in a combat zone with, 10 enemies, and it's blowing their heads off, and it's like, oh, it's no problem.
They didn't handle that moment
no,
very well.
No games really do that well. They never are able to balance the, you die in one pistol shot in a cinematic, but then in a gameplay you can take 50 bullets and no problem.
Yeah.
So it's always hard to balance that, but I think that's just one of the weird things, is that they were trying to tell this story that she, was very sensitive to this turning into the Lara Croft we know, but at the same time, gameplay-wise, you were just a total combat machine the whole time.
I thought that they took it a little too far in terms of showing her weakness. She was shivering a lot. She was whining a lot in the early cinematics.
I kind of like the shivering and stuff, though. I mean, because it did look like a cold,
I liked it.
rainy
I liked it
island.
a little bit. I thought they took it a little too far, but
I'd
I'm excited
be
to see how
cold.
they resolve the situation.
I'd be cold and shivering if I were on.
Yeah, but it's not showing the heroism of the main character.
That's true. Yeah, so.
But they certainly took a risk with it, and it sounds like that paid off a little bit.
Overall, the game is great. I'd recommend it to anyone who likes kind of action adventure games, and I loved it.
All right, cool. Well,
all right.
more tomorrow.
What about? See ya.